Meow and hello, yours truly, the Cat Protector here from Cat Galaxy. This show is In the Cat's Eyes, and with me right now is Barbara Espinosa. She has a political show on KFNX radio, 1100 AM, and of course, she's got American Freedom by Barbara, which is her political blog. Welcome to the show, Barbara.
Thanks, Noel, for having me. Appreciate it.
I'm going to start off with a quote because
Okay, go right
this
ahead.
This is something I found on American Freedom by Barbara. I called my stockbroker and asked him what I should be buying. He said if the Obama administration is in office much longer or re-elected, canned goods and ammunition are your best bet. I got mine, you. Okay. Typical Barbara quote.
Actually, it says guns, ammo, and canned goods.
Okay.
You can't have ammo without guns, Noel. I just want to tell you that.
Well, I'm just reading exactly what I'm seeing here.
The heading is guns, ammo, and canned goods.
Yeah, but I thought it was interesting to start off with this quote because despite the political, because you're very heavily in the political, you do have a sense of humor about it, even though you're very passionate about it. I mean, what got you into all this political stuff?
What got me into it, Scottsdale was going to build a theme park at Scottsdale Road and Camelback, and they were going to put canals on the gondola and charge money, and they were going to use $300 million of taxpayer dollars to do it, and they were going to condemn 120 businesses and give the land to a developer. And I just didn't think that was the right thing to do, so I started a project called Save Old Scottsdale, did an initiative, beat the developer who spent almost $1 million. I had $40,000 to spend, and I beat the initiative, beat the developer on the initiative, but 2-1. Took it to the vote, took it to the polls, and won 2-1.
Everybody likes a theme park, Barbara.
Not on the corner of Scottsdale Road, and not for $300 million of tax dollars that could go for roads, hospitals, parks, schools, whatever.
Sometimes when you go to the shopping malls here, a theme seems like a theme park.
Well, so you don't need to build a special one, you know.
Your show is very interesting from the fact that you address things from the Republican perspective because you are Republican. Who in your mind right now is the front runners for the presidential election in 2012? Who are your picks right now as things stand?
Actually, I don't have my show by Republican standards. I do it by mine. And mine happened to coincide with the Republican philosophy, so therefore it might seem more Republican. If I had to choose today, it would be Mitt Romney.
Okay.
I voted for him in the last election in the primary. I think so far, what I know about Herman Cain, he would make a good vice president, and I would love to see Allen West as Secretary of State.
Well, I think that for those that are listening to the show, to Hair on Fire, who might see things from a Republican perspective, I think we'll go with conservative. It is a more conservative showing.
It is conservative, that is true.
So you don't think that Sarah Palin, her name's come up on the Republican side as a possibility to try to run? She ran it under the McCain ticket as vice president, but some, like Fox News feel, maybe she might be a good pick for, president. She hasn't really thrown her name into the ring yet, but what do you think about that?
I wouldn't vote for her. I would, if it was between Sarah Palin and Obama, then I would probably have to vote for her or sit it out, but she would not be my choice.
So you wouldn't vote for an independent if that was, the third choice?
Well, write-ins never work because I can't spell the cat's name for one thing. He wants his cat to run.
Icarus for president. I have to stick with the home team.
And I can't spell Icarus, so you know.
Icarus. Well, yeah.
And if you misspell a write-in, then you're in bad shape. No, I wouldn't vote for Sarah Palin for president unless it was a had-to choice. I certainly wouldn't vote for her in a primary.
Yeah, you know, I've looked at some of the candidates and some of the ones that have decided, well, I'm going to run. Obama says he's going to run.
Well, of course he is.
Right now, I mean, do you think that his administration right now just doesn't get it?
I don't think they've got it from the beginning.
Because I see that the Tea Party grew vastly after his election. It grew vastly even more than it did before. What is your perspective? Do you think that it's changed a little bit, that the whole terrain politically has changed right now?
Well, you have the most socialist president you've ever had in the history of the United States. And the hope and change that he ran on, nobody thought to ask him what the hope and change was.
He didn't lie.
No.
He said he was going to change things.
He didn't
lie about that.
He didn't lie. He ran, it was going to be the most transparent administration ever. It's not transparent. They've done most things in the dark, dead of night, behind closed doors. They haven't listened to the American people at all, and regardless of what anybody thinks, it is still we the people. And he seems to think he knows better than what's good for you than what you think is good for you. My opinion, he is a empty suit with a teleprompter.
The storms that have hit the Midwest, really bad. An entire town wiped out by tornadoes in Missouri, and Obama is overseas. They're in the UK. Some would call it, establishing foreign policy, I guess, but some others might call it a vacation. What's your thoughts?
Actually, he said he was looking for his Irish roots, and
does he know what he is? I mean, he figured it out.
He was looking for his Irish roots. Besides going out and drinking beer and doing some photo ops and hobnobbing with the Queen, he sent the FEMA director and his condolences to the Midwest. And it's Joplin, Missouri. If that had been in any foreign country in the world, Obama would have been sending airplanes, dropping food, whatever. Instead, they chose to open the dam on the Mississippi to flood the areas and obliterate thousands of acres of farmland, small towns, etc., in order to save larger communities. Well, what's the matter with shoring up the dams in the larger communities? They knew that they were going to need to do it. They had plenty of time to get a team together to go down and do something about it. He is more interested in being president of the world than he is being a working president for the United States.
And we're seeing a tremendous amount of the American spirit in Joplin right now, with neighbors helping neighbors, they're the first responders.
And you don't see him on television crying about, I need help. You don't see him saying, well, he did the same thing with the snows in the northern part of the United States, when the snow during the winter was up above people's houses. You didn't see them sending anybody to plow the roads or anything. You saw the people doing it.
Do you feel that, as the leader of this country, that Obama really should have been there first before going over to the UK on whatever travels he has? Shouldn't he be there with the people rather than overseas?
Well, he'd have to change his travel arrangements.
And I know how tough that can be.
I mean, they've already fueled up the Air Force One. It changes travel arrangements. Maybe the reservation wasn't available at the palace any later than what he's there. I mean, of course the president should be in America when there's a disaster. He shouldn't be flitting across the country like some gadfly.
That's good. I haven't heard him called that yet. Now I've heard it for the first time.
Well, what do you think he is? He's busy.
Clueless?
Well, a clueless. How about a clueless gadfly?
Okay, we'll go with that. We'll
Okay,
combine
good.
The two. Obama talked about Israel going back to the pre-1967 lines, as it were. The indefensible territory is what Netanyahu is kind of referring to as. It's not as defensible. What do you think about Obama saying to Israel, this is what you need to do?
I don't think it's Obama's business what Israel needs to do. Israel knows what Israel needs to do better than Obama does. And how would Obama like Netanyahu coming over here and saying, listen, I want y'all to change the configuration of the United States. Go back to August 20, 1959 and don't include Hawaii as a state. How would he like that? I'd love it, because then he couldn't be president. He wouldn't be eligible. He may not be anyway, but he really couldn't be then.
The birth certificate is a big, still a big stickler, and some are saying, okay, Obama, he faked it. He faked the birth certificate. We've never really seen the real birth certificate. I know I haven't, but what is your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that is I'm going to have Dr. Jerome Corsi on Hair on Fire this coming Wednesday night. He wrote a book called Abomination, and he started most of the search for Obama's birth certificate, and probably knows more about it than anybody else in the country. But the latest thing that came out was that Obama was adopted. And when you're adopted in Hawaii, they seal your birth certificate, and you can only get it by court order. Now, that makes a good story. However, you are the president of the United States of America. You can bomb Libya off the map without approval from Congress and tell them it's a kinetic program. It has nothing to do with war while you're killing people by the thousands. But you can't get your own birth certificate? I find that hard to believe, that you couldn't get your own birth certificate as the President of the United States.
And that's true. He's opened the rule breaking for a lot of people. I mean, you can now run for president and not have to show your birth certificate. I mean, the rules are clearly state. You have to be American, American citizen. But
actually, that's not true.
Okay.
The Constitution says you have to be a natural born citizen.
Yes, it does.
Okay. It doesn't say you have to show a birth certificate, because remember, when they wrote the Constitution, they didn't have birth certificates. It doesn't say you have to prove it. It just says you have to be one.
Well, that means a lot of people can run for president. Barbara.
I happen to believe...
A lot of cats could run for president, but a lot of people could run for
especially
president.
Icarus or whatever that cat's name.
Icarus, yeah.
I happen to believe that Obama could call a world, because he wouldn't want to just stop with United States press. He could call a world conference and say, you guys are absolutely right. I was not born in America. I am a Muslim. And what are you going to do about it? And I don't think Congress has the cojones to do anything.
Would you have more respect for him if he came out and said that, Obama?
I would think he was more of a man.
Even if you disagree, I know you disagree with him.
I disagree on his philosophy
with him,
for America. I certainly do. I do not believe America is anything except exceptional. I don't believe America needs a president to tell you what to do. I don't believe America needs socialized medicine. I don't believe it should be mandated that you have to have it. I don't believe that you need 169 or some odd new government agencies. I don't believe you need to hire 16,000 more IRS agents to collect taxes if you don't have health insurance. No, I don't believe it. I don't believe any of that. And I would respect that he told the truth, but I'll never respect the man.
But it would be creating jobs if everybody complains they don't have a job, they'd be creating jobs. If they hired more IRS agents, they'd be creating
but
jobs.
They would be, what they would be hiring is, they would be hiring government jobs, and they would be enlarging the government. The thing is, the government isn't supposed to rule your life. The government is to protect the borders, which he doesn't do. We won't go into that. That'll be another hour and a half.
And they're not supposed to be creating jobs for people either. They're not supposed to be responsible for job creation, the government. That's private industry.
Well, let's put it this way. This administration has done everything they possibly can to burn the Constitution. And they have done a hell of a good job of it. Norman Thomas, in 1944, who had ran for president 6 times under this as a socialist, said, "I no longer have to run for president of the United States. The Democrats have taken over our platform." And since that time, it has progressively gotten more socialistic. And unless we get a president that believes in the exceptionalism of America and the Constitution and the American people, then we are going to end up a third world country known as the USS of A.
Do you think that private business should stay out of Congress as well, and be allowed to have such influence in Washington?
There should be some limitations, but you're supposed to be free, and you're supposed to have the right to speak. And to go into Congress as a lobbyist making thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to influence laws, I have mixed emotions about that, really. In some respects I think it's good, some respects I don't. I think it's playing games with the system.
You have a passion. I mean, politics is no doubt your passion.
I keep telling him it's because I don't have a man.
But it's great that they follow your passion, because you've done a lot. You've taken the Tea Party Express all the way to Washington and back.
Well, actually, I didn't ride on the Express. I was a volunteer in Washington and did the march.
Okay, then we stand corrected on that.
Yes, right.
Because I had heard from your blog postings that you were talking about the Tea Party Express and the work that you've done with the Tea Party. It's grown. I mean, it has gotten large since Obama took office.
There is a misconception about the Tea Party. The Tea Party is not a, quote, political party.
And yeah, I know that. I'm saying that.
And it is not a Democrat or Republican party. The Tea Party that I went to in Washington, D.C. and did the march, and I was a volunteer for Freedom Works, Tea Party Express, and Tea Party Patriots, etc. I marched with Democrats, Republicans, atheists, Jews, Christians, Buddhist, whatever, all races, all religions, all ethnic backgrounds, all economic backgrounds. They all have one thing in common. The main thing they have in common is they believe that the country is headed in the wrong direction, and they believe that the government is getting too big and interfering in people's lives too much. And that is what the Tea Party started on. It started as a peaceful revolution to change the way, the direction the country was headed. The original Tea Party was to get away from taxation without any representation, to get away from the king, this Tea Party was started just by a chance conversation on the exchange floor of we need to have a tea party, and they started it. Now tea parties have sprung up all across the country, and I've traveled to Nevada, to Orlando, Florida. I've met the Tea Party Express bus here in Flagstaff, etc. I have a friend, Andrea Shea King, who is the radio patriot, and she has been on the bus and does her blog and her radio show from the bus, and she's been on my radio show. And I've been in the bus and talked to Andrea and to Lloyd Marcus and to all of the guys that in there, and it is actually an endeavor to save this country. Those guys sometimes have 2 and 3 shows a day, and I was there while they were setting it up. It took them 2 hours to set up all the equipment. It takes them that much time to take it down, and they get on the bus and go to the next stop. So, and they're not doing it, most of them aren't doing it for money. Most of them are volunteers. I know that Andrea is a volunteer, and I know that part of that group has started another site called Defeat Obama, and it is to keep America a free nation and with the liberties that we've enjoyed all our lives. Is that a big enough?
I think that's a great answer to,
a short question.
To a very short question. Because I look at a lot of the people that are upset with the way things are right now. They have continuously said to the government, what's in it for me? What do you say to those people that expect the government to do everything for them?
Well, you can't really blame them, because a lot of them were raised with an entitlement mentality. I'm going to go back to the Tea Party for just a minute. A lot of the people that are involved in the Tea Party has never, ever got off of their couch and carried a sign, marched in the street. Now, we're not going to say that about myself, but a lot of those people, it's the first time they ever did anything. They spent their own money flying to Washington. They came in buses. It was a phenomenal experience. And the media downplayed it. There were almost 2 million people there. The White House helicopter was flying over the Capitol building, and they asked Obama about it, and he said, I didn't even know they were doing it. Well, he's a lying sucker is what he is, because he was in the helicopter going someplace else, we found out later. They shut off the cameras to the mall. So they have cameras on the mall that you can access at any time, and they shut the cameras off. So they did everything they could to downplay the people's concern about this country.
And we also talk about health care, because that's always been one of the biggest things that Obama's been famous for. Obamacare is what they called it. Any thoughts on that?
It's not the government's responsibility to provide health care for me. It's not the government's responsibility to mandate that a citizen has to buy anything. It's unconstitutional. It was passed in the dead of night without ever being read, and this is my own humble opinion, I think every single congressman and senator that voted for that bill without reading it should be impeached, tried for treason, and the keys should be thrown away to Alcatraz.
So you're saying they should reopen Alcatraz?
No, make them swim over. No,
he'd have to work for that. He'd have to.
Make them do sweat equity to live there, remodel it. But no, I think it is the absolutely worst thing that has ever been fostered on Americans.
What would you say to the next candidate if you what would be the biggest thing for you as an American citizen that you'd want to see this person do?
I would like to see a person not do spin and glitz. I'd like to see a person stand up and tell you the truth. And I'd like to see a person that will do what they say they're going to do. I have this thing about, say what you're going to do and do it. Don't say one thing and do something else. And a lot of this has to do with Americans because they don't educate themselves on it. They go along with their daily lives, raising their kids, earning a living, doing their yards, doing their laundry, whatever. But a politician that stands up and tells you, I am going to do away with the IRS, I'm going to do away with this, and I'm going to, not one person that's elected to Congress, the Senate, or the presidency can do anything. There is checks and balances. That's why there's 3 branches of government, and they can be a voice, but they can't change the world without help from the other ones.
So no flat tax? Do you believe in flat tax? That one has actually come up where...
Well, Steve Forbes tried to do a flat tax, and I don't see anything wrong with a flat tax. And they keep talking about they want to raise the taxes on the rich. We already have taxes where the more money you earn, the more taxes you pay. We have a graduated scale. So it's what they're doing is they're playing to what they think people want to hear.
Isn't that what politicians usually do, though, Barbara?
But you need to be honest about what you can do and can't do. And I think anybody that ever did that would be elected.
And do you have a choice for a candidate?
At this moment, Mitt Romney.
Okay.
And Mitt Romney, because Mitt Romney is a business person. He had, I think he started Staples, and I don't think that was any small task. So I think he knows about money. And on the medical care that he signed when he was governor of Massachusetts, he said he did what was best for his state. It was an experiment. Well, at least he admits that.
But what I'm saying, what I was saying, because I know we talked about this earlier, but the question comes up, with the way things stand right now, would you go and work on his campaign? Or would
no,
you,
I wouldn't be. No, because
or are you waiting to see who else?
No,
comes
because
out?
It's an exploratory campaign.
Okay.
It's not. He has not said I am running. He's been exploring it and raising money. No, the same as I won't give money on an exploratory campaign.
And what about Trump? Trump said he was thinking about running. He decided not to.
Well, I think Trump's hairdo would keep him out of it. They'd need to do a makeover on him.
And
Trump and you know what? Trump, God love him, everything he said he would do, he can't do that as president. He can't go tell the Chinese to stick it. You can't. There's some things you can do and some things you can't. First, you need to get somebody that will start teaching American history in school again, and socialist ology, or whatever you call it. I don't know what they say.
Sociology or
whatever they call it, where they teach about government. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, that would be like.
In my day, it was called the Constitution.
Okay. Well, I think that government can sometimes be that big sociological experiment too. There's so much diverse thinking. People definitely are voting. Do you feel they're voting their conscience, or they're voting their pocketbook?
They're voting their pocketbook. I think they choose a candidate by their pocketbook. I don't think they choose a candidate logically. I don't think they sit down and do a Ben Franklin and say, well, this one said he'd do this, and this one said he'd do this. I know they can do this, but they can't do this. A candidate that gives you overall cliches like the hope and change, and you never got any concrete things that were going to happen. I think you should walk away from them. I also think that a candidate they show as the average American person walking through a peanut field, I don't think you ought to vote for him either.
I've never been to a peanut field, so that leaves me out.
That was Carter's big thing when he ran. He had on blue jeans, a plaid shirt, and he walked through the peanut fields.
Illegal immigration. It's a big one. I know how you feel about it. I think our audience needs to know how you feel.
I think it's an invasion of this country without warfare. I think it's blamed mostly on the Mexicans, but the Mexicans aren't the main ones coming across the border. There are 40% of the people that cross the border aren't Mexican.
Yeah, there's OT. They call it OTM.
OTM, other than Mexican. The largest number coming across the border right now are from the Asian and Middle East countries. There's another form of immigration too. I don't know if you've heard of this one. It is called birth tourism. Because America is the only country in the world that is industrialized that allows you to be an American citizen if you're born in the country. Women that are pregnant from other countries are now coming to America with visas. When they're in their last trimester of pregnancy, they're paying anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000 to come to the United States, because there's nothing to stop a pregnant woman from traveling from wherever. They come legally, and they have areas. California was one that just recently was busted, that they have houses set up for them, and they have doctor care for them. They take care of them, make sure the baby's born in the hospital. They have doctors and nurses on call. And after the lady has the baby, she stays at the house for a few weeks until they can travel. And she has given birth to an American citizen, and then she goes home.
Yeah, and that seems to be how things are right now.
And when when the baby becomes 18, or when the baby's 10 or 11 or whatever, they can come to America, and because their child is American citizen, when that child reaches 21, they can bring their families over. So the interpretation of, I think it's the 14th Amendment on immigration should be clarified. I don't think it was intended when the Constitution was written that anyone that had a baby in the United States, which it was only 13 colonies at the time, would become an American citizen. And the big deal that keep talking about Mexico wasn't even in existence at the time. They didn't even know it was there. Mm-hmm. So it had that amendment has nothing to do with Mexico. So I think that it needs to be clarified, and I don't think that we should be the only country in the world, because you come here pregnant, by plane, crawling across the border, walking, or in some cases I learned that the Border Patrol, the Mexican nationals, are now coming across in an ambulance, and the Border Patrol is just waving them across, saying have a good time, because they've been instructed not to stop them.
So you call it invasion?
I call it an invasion of this country.
Finally, I think with your show, because let's talk a little bit about your show. You've got a really successful blog. I've read it.
That means it's successful. According to Google, I get about 4,000 hits a month.
Well, you know what? It's better than some of the other blogs I've read. But I'd say even when you're getting 4,000, you've gained some success. But also with the radio show, how's that going?
I don't, you asked me that, and I really don't keep track of that stuff. I just do my thing, And I think that people that watch numbers, and I didn't do that even selling real estate. I never kept track of how many clients I had. I never kept track of how much money I was earning. I just kept doing my thing. And, you know, if you keep doing it and don't worry about it, it'll work.
I think that's a great conclusion on,
I mean,
passion. I mean, that's...
I mean, it'll work. On my blog, if I do post anything on my blog, I have researched it. I don't post things just to post them or because I like them. I actually do check them out to make sure they're true and correct, because I think that's a big problem of people putting stuff out that is misinformation.
But on the who cares front, you heard a lot about Sarah Palin moving here, which the media just seems to be eating up. We don't know if it's true or not, because it really hasn't been said, even from Sarah Palin, I'm moving to Arizona. Or some come here as winter visitors, so I don't understand that way of thinking. Do you think the media just kind of, well, they just feed on anything that's fed?
Well, that is obvious with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean,
all the jokes coming out of California.
I mean, you know, that's obvious.
Movies, but
I mean, you've got Joplin, Missouri, been absolutely devastated down to splinters. You've got floods all through the Midwest. You've got farmland that is underwater. You've got crops that are not going to be any place. Food prices are going higher. Gas prices are going through the roof. You've got a president that's a gadfly running across the country, not doing anything about it. And they're talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger stumping the maid. I mean, does that make sense?
I think others have stepped forward now. I've been hearing about others. Jane Seymour said that she knew somebody that Arnold was having an affair with.
I don't keep.
I mean,
you know, they ought to cut it off and put it in the Smithsonian if he's had that many.
Spaying and neutering for humans. What do you think?
Well, I think it would work.
Would that work?
Some of that would work.
So, finally, tell us what's up and coming on. Besides the guests that we already know about on Hair on Fire, what's up and coming?
On Hair on Fire, Dr. Jerome Corsi. On June the 1st, we have Jenny Beth Martin, who is the founder of the Tea Party Patriots. And then on June the 8th, I have Matthew Vadum, who is a friend of mine and has written a book called Subversion. It is all the information you never wanted to know about Obama being connected with ACORN and SEIU. Matthew has been on numerous shows, radio, television, etc. He is a senior editor with Capital Research in Washington, D.C., and knows more about ACORN and SEIU than anybody else outside of the union in America. And he has written a book. I just got a copy of it, and I had done an interview with him in February, and Obama is connected heavily to the SEIU and to ACORN, and they have full access to the White House. So
you cover a lot of stuff, Barbara. I can't compete with all of that.
Well, you know, I just do whatever blows up my skirt at the moment.
I mean, you've had some pretty interesting guests because you cover everything from the conservative side.
I've had Reince Priebus, who is the new chairman of the Republican National Committee. I've had a really phenomenal guest, David Norcross, who actually was one of the advisors on Mitt Romney's last campaign. And he is a law partner in Blank in Rome. He also was elected chairman of the Republican Lawyers Association or something. It's got a long title. I'd have to go look it up to tell you what it is. But he's very, very interesting. And
You've had Russell Pierce.
I've had Russell Pierce on. I had Secretary of State Ken Bennett on. I've had Lori Klein, Senator Lori Klein on. I've had Lloyd Marcus on. I've had...
I've been on Hair on Fire.
Yes, he's been on
I
Hair
have.
on Fire. And I've had several candidates on.
And then you've had an author.
I've had several authors. I've had Bill Poneth, who, and I had Sonia Zapata, who wrote a book that I just love the title. It says, "Screw the Skinny Bitches, I Want to Eat." And then I had...
That's the name of the book?
That's the name of the book. Screw
the titles they come up with.
I love the book. I think it is absolutely phenomenal. And then I've had Penny Orloff on, who wrote a book called Jewish Thighs on Broadway, which is hysterical too. And she happens to be a relative of Noel's. I guess he claims her.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, I know my mom's side of the family somewhat well.
But I had her, and I can't remember who all else I've had. I've had Vernon Parker on. He's co-hosted with me a few times. He's the former mayor of Town of Paradise Valley, and he's on the city council. And of course, I've had Charles Long, who is a retired opera singer, and he does tech support for me. And I've had Terry Allison, who helped write some of the NRA training manuals, and was president for I don't know how many years of the Arizona Rifle and Pistol Association. And I've had Noble Hathaway on, who is the current president of the Arizona Rifle and Pistol Association. I've had Claude Maddox on, who's running for City of Scottsdale, excuse me, the City of Phoenix mayor. And that's all I can remember.
And I live in Phoenix.
I know.
So this should be very interesting to read up on some of these.
Well, all you have to do is to go to Blog Talk Radio, Hair on Fire, and you can listen to Claude Maddox's interview, because every interview that I do on KFNX, the commercials are edited out and they're posted on Blog Talk Radio, which is available 24/7, 365 days a year worldwide.
So if you miss Hair on Fire, there's
Don't miss it. Don't miss it.
No, there's no excuses. You can still listen. I mean, even if you're not hearing it live, you can still hear
And
it.
at American Freedom by Barbara, there's a link that you can also listen to the shows.
I've even listened, from time to time. I even call into Hair on Fire
I
when I'm
know.
not on the air. I will call in
And he won my sex paranormal
yeah,
contest.
he don't want to talk.
He don't want to talk about
Yeah.
that. We're not going to go
Yeah,
there.
we're not going there but it was an interesting paranormal contest that I was involved with, and I happened to send in probably the funniest video that
He
she
did.
had.
He absolutely did.
And
He wanted to keep this interview to
Yeah,
6
yeah,
minutes. Do you think he
yes.
managed?
No. Well, there's a lot of interesting things, and I think you have done a lot of interesting things, and I think that you have brought some of this stuff to light and gotten people to think, and I think this is great to have you on, and hopefully you'll come back on at some point.
I will.
again.
My goal with doing Hair on Fire, the radio show, was to educate, to say to the listeners, don't listen to the research and don't listen to the spin and glitz. Research it. Don't vote for someone just because you like their smile.
Do the research.
Do the research. I was at a dinner and I had a lady tell me I voted for Obama because I liked his smile, and my host over here had to hold me to the table to keep me from jumping across it, because she said, "Oh, I don't know anything about him, but I voted for him because I liked his smile." That's not the reason to vote for someone. You need to vote for them based on their principles.
And I think that's a good education. I think those are those are good words to live by, because you do have to get educated about the people that are running. You can't go by a commercial. You can't say, well, the commercial, this is what they're saying is true. You need to get into the core stuff. You need to do your research, and I think it's great that your show does that.
Thanks.
So thank you for being here, Barbara.
Thanks for having me.